So artificial intelligence has the face of a woman. And don't worry, it's not me. Her name is Sophia. And she's created quite a storm on the internet. The Saudis were quite swift with that courtship. She's the first robot to be given a citizenship. That got me thinking, and for many other people as well. What does that mean for her rights? Will she have more rights than the Saudi women, or she'll have the same rights? But most interestingly, it also got me thinking, what does it mean for women in Africa? If she had features of an African woman, like me, and a number of you in this room, would she have automatically gotten that citizenship, let alone a visa? So we're entering, or rather, we're said to be at the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution. And this is an era in human development that is said to blur the lines between the digital, the human, and the biological. You can think about it this way. Machines are taking over. Or are they? Now that is really scary, and it's gotten a lot of people thinking about the implications for the future of work, the future of livelihoods, and our everyday lives. There are many things that we take for granted when we try and wrap our heads around this really rather abstract concept, is what does it really mean? However, the everyday gadgets that we use, and I'm holding one of them right now, are embedded or are carrying aspects of artificial intelligence. Think about your smartphones, the facial recognition that is inbuilt in that. Think about what we're excited about when we think about the future. Self-driven cars, that's artificial intelligence. But there's another aspect of it that is driving industrialization in our economy. And this is the automation of work. Think about automation in the factories, in the manufacturing sector, the spaces where women are most economically active. When you think about that, it gets us thinking about who is going to be losing and who's going to be gaining. It is not the first industrial revolution that we're experiencing. But somehow, there's something about this phase that makes us uncomfortable. It is the speed and the pace at which it moves. It is the fact that we haven't quite wrapped our heads around what it means. We went through the first industrial revolution, where we used water and steam for machine production. We went through the second industrial revolution that used electric power to increase production. We went through the third industrial revolution that used technology and information to automate production. And throughout those systems of development, throughout that progress, there are some that gained and some that lost. I am particularly concerned about what it means for the rights of women in Africa, and most specifically for women's economic rights, the right and the capacity to participate in the economy, the right to work, the right to social protection should you lose your income, the right to a life of dignity, the right to food, and the right to benefit from the science and culture advances that we're experiencing. And most importantly, the right to derive equitable benefits that are equivalent to your contribution and your shares in the economy. Now, when we look at, we observe what has been said about artificial intelligence, is much of the analysis is looking at what will happen in the formal sector of employment. We've heard about the intensification of future jobs around ICT, digitization, computers. Ladies, if you're still studying, my daughter's in the audience, engineering is the way to go. Think about it. However, we also know that with the reality of our structures in the continent, the bulk of the women are not in formal employment. They are in the informal sector. And those who are formally employed are really at the bottom of the chain in terms of occupying and dominating the unskilled labor force. And that is the first line of defense, so to speak. It is the first wave of jobs that we're likely to lose. The implications of artificial intelligence, we get so excited about robotics and its potential. We hear about the medical advances, but we don't hear enough about what the social costs might be and who might lose. I actually think that if I look at the analysis that has been ongoing around this, around the question of the future of work, driven by the narratives within the World Economic Forum, our own governments, the Africa Development Bank, that focus solely on job losses in the formal sector. But when we are realistic and we look at the structures of our economies, the reality is the bulk of economic activity is happening in informalized spaces. On average, the GDP, the informal sector, contributes between 30 to 50% of the GDP. 70% of people, of the labor pool that is active in the informal sector is women, and most of them are informal traders. How much have we heard about what the implications of artificial intelligence and advancement in technology and automation will have in their lives? We're having an ahistorical conversation that is failing to come to grasp with the fact that the advances in artificial intelligence are not as apolitical and as socially just as they seem to be. Not everyone will benefit. What can we learn from technological advances in the past, particularly the ones that have been accessible to women in the economic spaces where they're most active? One of the challenges that women in the informal sector face is that of access to finance. And within the technology space, we have been so excited about the prospects and the potential of mobile money to open up access to finance for previously unbanked populations. M-Pesa in East Africa, on any given day, is said to move close to $730 million on any given day. Orange Money in West Africa has moved money. EcoCash in Zimbabwe, just across the Limpopo, has also been quite instrumental. Despite that, though, because of the challenges that women face with access to technology, particularly smartphones, and also access in terms of transportation, getting to the access points where they collect money, as well as the high transaction costs that are a deterrent for somebody who must make hard decisions between providing a meal the next day or buying stock for their small shop. 70% of women in Africa are said to not be able to have access to finance. So when I have these discussions with colleagues, the question is, but hang on, you're talking 20th century innovation. Girl, we are talking about the future here. We're talking about going to space. We're talking about exciting technology. Why are you hung up on what mobile money has done? The point that I'm trying to emphasize is, in our excitement, we've got historical lessons to learn from. And technology gives us a glimpse into what the future might look like. Not all is gloom. There are some exciting prospects around artificial intelligence or around the potential value of technology. There is a very exciting initiative coming out of Mozambique. Women innovators in the tech industry, working with informal traders, decided to assist them in developing an application called Mooza. With this app, the traders in Mozambique upload a list of their shopping products that they need from the South African side of the border. And without having to leave their homes or having to leave their stores, the order is received on the other side of the border. And the shops package the goods and they dispatch them to a network of taxi drivers who then deliver the goods in Mozambique. I had the opportunity to speak to one of the innovators around this. And I said to her, tell me in real terms, this sounds exciting, but what difference did it make to the lives of the women? And she says to me, one of the biggest things is it saves them time. And we all know time is money, right? And in our economies, time is money, and money is very important. It saves them time to be able to deliver on the dual roles that they have within their communities, their domestic roles, time spent with their children, taking care of their education needs and their health needs. But most importantly, it also protects them from the potential harassment and violations that they are subjected to at their borders. Which brings me to another potentially exciting potential of artificial intelligence. Is thinking about this, I actually wondered, what difference would it make if we said, digitized our borders and replaced all those border officials with robots? Wouldn't it make it a pleasure for travel? The robot sees you coming, and instead of saying, what brings you to South Africa? Or what brings you to Zimbabwe? What brings you to Kenya? It says, this way, ma'am. Well, that's an exciting potential, I think. But I think most importantly, I'm really thinking about how we think about digitization, artificial intelligence, advances in technology to facilitate the movement of people and goods across our borders. So we can make the intra-trade agreements that we have all signed up to a reality. Would that not ease the conditions of doing business? For the informal traders, of course. And the reason why I keep emphasizing on the informal traders is as more people lose their jobs, that will become a safety net for our economies. And there's a lot of value in how the informal economy is organized, the solidarity behind that, the dependence on people-to-people networks, on social relations, and the fact that the benefits and the returns accrue to the household level where they're most needed. There's much talk about how we cushion those who lose jobs through, say, universal basic income grants, but there's a question of how do we continue to protect the potential for households to continue to generate income that can be directly used at those levels. I've talked about the advances around access to finance and the potential of the technological advances. The one thing that really concerns me, and I think we should be thinking about, particularly for women's rights activists, is the fact that artificial intelligence, particularly in the spaces of the finance and the banking sector, job recruitments, depend on algorithms, big data, mathematical models, right, that are embedded and laden with some extent of sexism and inequality. And if we don't think about what goes into those models, who is framing the parameters of what goes into those models, then we're missing the point. What is most disturbing is looking at where the advancements are going. There seems to be very few organizations and very few companies that are working hard to remove the biases within the algorithms. That is of concern to me. Decisions are being made about who gets jobs, who has access to finance, how much it is, and these are based on income levels. They're based on where you are, who you are, what records are available about you in the data systems. So with these embedded inequalities, there's a lot of people who will fall through the cracks. These are questions that I think we need to think about. What will shift the needle? And I was very deliberate about this picture that I'm putting forward, is I think a lot of hope lies in our youth. Africa needs to think about how we take advantage of the youth dividend. Our young women are more educated than, say, women 2 generations behind them, maybe 3. However, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of closing the gender gap within the technology, science, and engineering fields, within the computer and digitization fields. How do we get more girls interested in studying computer sciences? We need to look at that quite carefully. Governments and companies and society, all of us, we need to come together to provide regulations. Think about what the regulations and standards ought to be. If artificial intelligence is to benefit us, we have to be part of the conversation of where it goes. We have to be part of the conversation about which industries, which spaces in the economy, who would benefit. Women need to be involved in technological innovations. There are lots of capable African women out there. This is required in order for artificial intelligence and innovation in this space to respond to the gender differences. The future is here to stay. We cannot stop the wheels of time. However, artificial intelligence could be transformative, but it should not take away women's economic autonomy. Thank you.